It's Jay Mariette here, and one thing I wanted to get out of my brain, because I've had 4 years of doing this, is what I do when I am pumping, how I manage pumping, and how the tricks and tips that I've learned along the way. This is by no means comprehensive, but I wanted to share what I've done, what's worked for me. And the first thing that I needed to do immediately when I started pumping was figure out a way to be hands-free. I was pumping pretty soon after my first was born because I wasn't making enough, and she gave me mastitis because she wasn't latching correctly. And despite me reaching out to lactation consultants and everything, I did not get the right guidance that I needed to have the best breastfeeding relationship. So I quickly moved to pumping, and it kind of worked out because I'm sort of a numbers freak and I like knowing kind of how much my baby was eating. And also it gave me the opportunity to kind of separate myself when I needed to, take a break, and have somebody bottle feed her and know that she was going to eat. So the first thing I did was make a hands-free tank top. I thought this was super ingenious when I came up with it, and it just helped me tremendously. I've been wearing them for pretty much 4 years, since I'm not quite done with my pumping journey yet. But basically it's a shelf tank top that is flipped inside out. So it's regularly like this. And what I did is that I cut holes where the nipples are, where the nipples would be. So then when you flip it inside out, the holes are on the inside. The holes are now on the inside. So as you wear this and you go to pump, you just pull it, you put your flange in here through the hole, and then you open the tank a little bit, and then only put it slightly over where the flange is so that it holds it into your chest. And then you're able to at least have it hands-free here. It's not quite mobile unless you figure out a way to bring it with you, bring the pump with you if it is an actual pump. So that worked for me quite well. I do know that some people who are a little bit larger in the chest area and the bust area may or may not have success with this, but this worked really well for me. So I was really happy to discover this, and like I said, I've been wearing them for 4 years, pretty much every postpartum year that I breastfed. So it's really useful in my opinion. Also, when it comes to being postpartum, I always went for the larger size than what I normally was, because I know that that was going to be the most comfortable thing for me. All right, secondly, obviously importantly, is the pump itself. I am a big fan of Spectra. These are hospital grade, I believe, and I've used both the Spectra 1 and the Spectra 2, and they've both been really good for me. They've provided me with really good output. For me personally, I was just enough pumper, and I did supplement with formula as needed because I know fed is best. So that worked really well for me. I hacked the Spectra so that it could fit with Medela parts, because I had an excess of them from my family members who pumped before, and we sanitized and used them back and forth between our children, and it really worked out for us. So I just was more comfortable in the Medela mechanics with this particular Spectra pump. So I believe this is the S1, and it was great. And I like it too because you can charge it up with a battery, or you can charge it up overnight, and then you can have it hands-free from the wall outlet throughout the day. Next thing that I found really important was sunflower lecithin. And sunflower lecithin is a fat emulsifier, which means that it will keep your milk flowing a bit more and not getting as many clogs. Like, there are lots of little clogs that happen in your breast, and they can, if you don't pump properly, then they can become bigger clogs and bigger problems. So I used to take this regularly with my first, after having mastitis twice in like 3 months, and then for my subsequent children, I kind of took it as I felt like I wasn't emptying appropriately. Speaking of clogs though, I've had a couple different ways of being able to get rid of them, one of which was this morning actually. I had no idea this was going to work, but I had to try because I was desperate. When you get a clog and you feel like you're not emptying, obviously this was my first go-to, but also you want to use some heat compression, I have found in my research. And also sometimes doctors recommend a frozen bag of like peas or something and try to like make the clog smaller. That never worked for me, but I know that they do offer that as an option. What worked for me, and also they have, they say that sometimes electrical toothbrushes that, when you hold them, they kind of vibrate. You can put that on the clog too and see if it can kind of break it up. You can also kind of like do the dangle pump, like where you're on all fours and the gravity is helping things kind of come down. Those things never work for me. Heat usually works for me, and the sunflower lecithin usually works for me. But strangely enough, this is what worked for me today, And I was so desperate, I had to leave the house, and it was going to be way too complicated to bring my heating pad with me that I had been using, but I needed to pump. And so I brought this potato with me after I warmed it up in the microwave for about 1.5 minutes. It was very hot and it retained its heat, but after it cooled down a little bit, I wrapped it in like a single layer of kitchen towel and I stuck it right here when I was pumping. And I think the pressure of the potato and the warmth of it allowed the breast to finally empty and get my clog out. And I could not believe that it actually worked, but it did. So this potato was definitely a saver today. I, again, didn't realize it was going to work, but it did. And I was very happy that it did because I feel much better now. You know, I've let those kind of clogs like kind of go. Either I was too busy or something. And I decided that I just needed to give this a try. And I'm glad I did because I think it was going to turn into mastitis if I let it kind of go. I wasn't emptying properly. So this worked out. So when in doubt, potato. I know in the past I've had to heat up apples as well for my daughter because she's got like a birch allergy. And so they say that, oh, if you zap an apple for a little while in the microwave for like 30 seconds, it should take away the sensitivity to that pollen or that birch allergy. So I knew that it would work with apples as well, and they stay warm as well. But I had this on hand and it did work. So it might not work for you, but it's one other option. And when you're desperate to get rid of a clog, I've pretty much tried it all. So I'm glad that this worked. All right, that's it for my pumping journey, sort of tips and tricks and hacks for pumping. And hopefully you guys will take something from it. If you don't, then maybe pass along to someone who might. Thanks so much. Take care. Oh, and I almost forgot too. When it comes to pumping, I would pump and then I would I would pump and then put my milk that I had pumped, I would leave it right in its bottles and I'd put it right in the refrigerator to cool. Because what I would do then is I would put all of it into one glass jar with a spout that I'll include a picture of, and then I would just use that as a container all day. I would add all my pumps in there. Now, there is some debate about whether or not that's good or not, because apparently when you have your first morning pump, you have a lot of melatonin that's in your breast milk. So my kids always just got all that mixed into their daily bottles, but I suppose you could save the morning milk and use it when you really need it, since there's a higher concentration of melatonin in that first morning pump. If you aren't pumping in the middle of the night, that is. I pumped in the middle of the night once a night for like the first 4 to 6 months that each baby was born, and then after that, when I started going back to work, I just allowed myself to sleep through the night, minus waking up with the baby when they needed to. But I stopped pumping around the 4 to 6 month mark, in the middle of the night anyway, and it would just be in the morning. So there's that. But I used big glass bottles, and I bought they were mason jar bottles, and I bought a piece that went on top of it that screwed on top and then allowed me to open and close to pour easily through a spout with the mason jars. It was rather large. Like I said, I'll include a picture of it. But yeah, I would do that, and it worked out. The only exception for when I wouldn't add the last my milk, it was the last pump of the day, I would keep that in a separate little bottle, because I noticed that my milk, I wouldn't say spoiled, but it got that kind of like lipase, like high lipase, like soapy kind of taste after 24 hours of being out. So I kind of saved that extra last pump for like, sometimes if I had extra milk, it wouldn't be so spoiled so soon, since it was like a full 12 to 14 hours after my morning pump. So I usually save that one to be at the end. So that's just one more little piece that I wanted to share. All right, thanks.